Freedom Fighters is known as kind of a cult classic, remembered fondly for its simplistic yet iconic squad-based combat. And who doesn't love the movie Red Dawn? Not that one, even though Chris Hemsworth is the best part. But do you want to play a game that's pure, concentrated, patriotic badassness? Then you can easily purchase this on Steam. If you like videos that go in depth to the story and gameplay of a game, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Now enjoy the video.
Respond will prove our claim. I stand before you and the world today to reaffirm the pledge our forefathers made to each other and for each of us. To protect our lives, our fortunes, and our self-worth. So I ask you now to take up arms against the evil invaders and yell in their faces that they will never take our freedom.
Originally titled Freedom: The Battle for Liberty Island, eventually being renamed to Freedom Fighters, was originally released on October 1st, 2003 on the GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Windows. Published by, of course, it's a dead series from the early 2000s, so it has to be EA. But it was developed by IO Interactive, with a team comprised of early Hitman devs and both games of the Kane and Lynch series. Originally having plans to create a sequel in 2005, but because of the failure of Kane and Lynch, that never happened. Then they were purchased by Square Enix in 2009. They considered making a sequel after that purchase as well, until Square Enix had some financial problems themselves. That happened in 2017. That's when they separated. Surprise, surprise, they did keep the rights to two franchises, Hitman and Freedom Fighters. Now, while I doubt they're actually going to make a sequel in the future, even if they did bring it up themselves multiple times, it's more likely that they'll make a remake at this point, resetting the franchise or just straight up reimagining it. Hopefully with the same creative squad-based gameplay. Our heroes are two plumbers, our main character Chris and his brother Troy Stone, traveling across New York City while talking about the new Soviet conspiracy theories. Going to Isabel's apartment to clean her pipes. Not like that. Not in a porn star way. But like you'd expect in any movie or video game, a couple of Soviet soldiers raid her apartment just as the Stone brothers arrive, looking for Isabella Angelina. Since she's not there, they just assume Troy actually has answers, taking him instead. We try to get him back quickly, but they have a helicopter. That's right, this is our tutorial, taking place during the downfall and occupation of Manhattan. Helping us in our campaign to rescue our brother and Isabel, we meet three core members of the Freedom Fighters, Mr. Jones, Phil, and the Kid, all helping in introducing the mission structure of the game. Freedom Fighters' mission structure involves going to multiple locations with multiple objectives, but you're giving the ultimate choice of how to handle it. Now, like every single old school video game reviewer talks about, how to teach someone naturally the core of the game. While each part of the map is technically separate, you need to utilize everything in both areas to proceed. To rescue Isabel, who's trapped in this police station, we need to get down this street that's covered by a sniper. But if we take the C4 from the cops that are pinned down by them, we can blow up the gas station underneath them, killing them off. Now we can go to either map without knowing about the other situation, but we'll ultimately need to go to the other map to solve this situation. So it gives you the feeling of freedom and game expression, while teaching you how to abuse its systems, before entering the police station and allowing you to be as dumb as you want to be. The way the game and the nice police officer want you to handle the situation is by going through the subway station, fighting a handful of troops with almost no weaponry, infiltrating the police station through the secret entrance in the back, then killing the Russian invaders while they're unprepared. Or, my favorite method, Molotov cocktail the entire front of the fucking building, burning their troops alive while picking them off as they come down the stairs. It's very difficult and dangerous on harder difficulties. I mean, it almost becomes luck-based, but it can be hilarious for one man to Arnold Schwarzenegger his way into a Soviet-controlled base. But now we can rescue Isabella and complete our actual main objective for each map, raising the American flag. Now it's time to save Troy with Isabella's help, or her force's help. If you've been doing everything you've been told to do, you'll have enough charisma to lead 2 of her best men into battle. This is what makes Freedom Fighters famous. It's not just a third-person shooter, it's a squad-based third-person shooter where you build your troops from the freedom-fighting Americans that you run into, using a very simplified but very useful command system, utilizing only 3 buttons: follow, attack, and defense. Press any of these buttons and one soldier will do that corresponding action. Hold that button and the whole squad will. If you're aiming down sights, you can tell them to go to a specific location while performing that action. When following, they'll follow your every step, defending you everywhere you go. The attacking key means they will become way more aggressive. Just having to point forward so that they will attack anyone in front of you, and when pointing to that location, they will attack anyone that comes near and take aggressive positions in a fight. When putting someone in defense though, they'll just stay in that location and stay as safe as possible while still fighting. This is all simplistically implemented, but its implementation makes it absolutely complex. As of right now, all we can do is move these 2 soldiers forward slowly but safely. But later,
observe and move. Yeah, I'll find him. You're gonna be fine.
the second mission is where we'll have to utilize everything you learned here. Now, with 3 maps to conquer, each with their own side objectives that affect the entire level as a whole. See, there are 3 major problems to deal with: the Hind D, the near constant reinforcements in their fucking car that drive in,
Look out!
and the biggest problem. In fact, we don't have enough explosives to deal with either of these problems. So while we can technically go to every single map and raise the American flag to victory, it's made a lot more difficult if we don't do the side objectives. Doing objectives and saving civilians is how you gain charisma points. This is a squad-based shooter with some soft sorta RPG mechanics. But you will not be raising your strength and speed levels, no. You just get another man to your crew now. I know that doesn't sound like much, but every man in your crew is a devastating force. You see, with a big enough group, we can attack from multiple fronts at once, like sending one of the boys to cover us with the machine gun tower, and have the rest of our forces flank while we throw Molotov cocktails down on them from up high. If we really don't care, we can just use them as our decoy while we flank behind. But when we get really deep into the game, you might not even have to use these mechanics anymore, because once our force gets big enough, you can just steamroll Russian soldiers with the sheer numbers and firepower. Now, with all this information, you're probably asking, what district do you attack first? Well, think of it like a Mega Man game. It's a lot easier to defeat Magma Dragoon if you have Storm Owl's upgrades. But since you suck at fighting him, you need Cyber Peacock's moveset to make him easier. I mean, it's not exactly easy, but at least it's doable for you specifically. It's basically a flowchart. You have the freedom of expression to attack and destroy whatever you think you are capable of. For me personally, it's easier to stop the reinforcements while being shot at by this helicopter than it is to blow up the helicopter with the near constant reinforcements destroying me from behind while running me over.
Look out!
And all of this is complemented so well by Freedom Fighter's simplistic but well done level design. Think Deus Ex, where you have multiple solutions to one problem. Every district has a problem to overcome. In some areas, every single street is a problem, fighting for every inch of real estate. But if you're willing to actually explore looking for alternative methods, you'll be greatly rewarded. Now, there's always the fun of just running through the machine gun line and killing every Soviet scumbag you come across. But let's just say you take a second look to the left, go down a dark alley, and fight one guy smoking a pack of Newports. That's right, he's the only guard in this back alley that leads to the apartment building that overlooks the helipad. Freedom Fighters allows you to feel what it's like to be a guerrilla New York freedom fighter that knows every single street, alleyway, and every apartment building like it's the back of your hand. And these Soviets have no fucking clue how devastating that can be. Every time you see a highly fortified location, there's almost always something you can do about it. Like here, going through this blown out apartment building, killing these snipers, taking their rifles and firing down into this unprotected base. One of my favorites is this specific warehouse. When you enter the room, you're basically dead already. If you climb your way up the side of the building though, you can go hide up in the rafters like Sting, and you and your crew can then rip them apart with almost no resistance. And this is the case for almost every encounter that looks impossible. I mean, Molotov cocktails are one of the most powerful pieces of equipment in Freedom Fighters for a reason. For the early third of Freedom Fighters, there's not much story to be told other than the initial invasion, except for the fact that the Soviets have taken over our news network to introduce us to our better future, alongside our new leaders.
Our great leader, Comrade General Tatarin, will be addressing the nation later. So on behalf of the dedicated staff here at the studio and the glorious Soviet armed forces, welcome New York to a better future.
The news broadcasts are how we get news of how the war effort is going and are almost satirical in nature. Now, not the same level as something like RoboCop or Starship Troopers, but they are in the same vein. I mean, until shit gets real.
After a brief interrogation by our intelligence officers, the brother, Troy Stone, confessed to his participation in many crimes carried out by the rebel group. We take you live to a press conference at City Hall.
Here now is the brother of the Freedom Phantom, with a special plea to his brother to desist from further fighting.
My brother and I, we were just bored, and we sort of drifted into crime at a young age due to a lack of direction or ideals and playing video games all night, violent ones. The society we grew up in kind of abandoned us, you know, but it's never too late to straighten out. So Chris, for my sake and the sake of the new system, I beg you to stop your terrorist activities. Okay, just surrender to the authorities and they'll treat you fairly. The Soviet government gives you their word of honor. Just please do as they ask.
It is obvious that the heroic Soviet army has once
Everything
again...
I said was lies. They forced me, Chris. Don't believe this stinking propaganda. Keep fighting. Set us all free. No stick. Get your head.
And now to the weather for tomorrow. I hear it is getting colder, Comrade Ilyana?
Your brother's been killed, and the son of a bitch who did it has to pay. Now it's time to assassinate the Soviet general, General Tartian, residing in the well-fortified Governor Island. This is the first and only stealth mission of the game, and Chris is on this mission alone. No help, nothing. The only helpful thing we have is our sniper rifle and the stupidity of the enemy AI. Now, I said this was a stealth mission, but it's kind of easier just to kill everybody. Now, you don't have to kill everybody. Matter of fact, it seems to make the early part of this mission harder. But when you're stupid and lost, shit tends to happen. I mean, do you even see this fucking ladder? This whole mission is a lot easier if you're utilizing this sewer system, which you've been using to transfer from district to district the whole game, but it has another use. You can't save or quick save, so this is the only way you can save progress, other than the autosave feature. It can be abused the same way as a quick save feature, but it also doesn't work as easily. Now, after we're done getting revenge for our brother and crippling the Soviet army by assassinating their prolific leader, it's time to escape. This part is fairly easy since I saved, scummed, and slaughtered most of the Soviet army.
Remember me, Chris? Yes, I know your name. Perhaps this is more familiar? Hello, Christopher. You see, I've resumed my original profession.
Upon entering the base, you are met with Mr. Jones, a Russian spy meant to infiltrate Isabella's group when she wasn't in her apartment earlier, having the Ruskies infiltrate the Freedom Fighter base, and the only one who's left is the Freedom Phantom Chris, as he has to fight his way through the hardest mission in Freedom Fighters, because you're completely alone still. This one level showcases every single problem Freedom Fighters has, from the wildly inaccurate weapons. Honestly, your crosshair feels more like a fucking suggestion, which, to be fair, you are playing a New York plumber turned militia leader, so it is character accurate, but it still sucks. This game is designed around squad combat, so you usually aren't scraping every inch of the map for ammo. So for most of the game, you're allowed to miss shots, but not really here. This is where you get to experiment with all the weapons though, because you need every single weapon in your arsenal to proceed. Since we're already in the sewer, you can't expect to enter a sewer to quick save, so this has to be done in one go. I was playing on the hard difficulty. This is important because, as you can see, it affects the health values of Chris and all of the enemies in the game, but not that of the weapons. All the weapons have the same damage across all difficulties. Nothing changes, but the usefulness. You can always headshot a motherfucker with a sniper rifle, making one of the most powerful weapons in the game, except for your usual instruments of destruction like the rocket launcher, and your most powerful weapon to my standards, the PKM, your heavy machine gun. These are your power weapons, and they are the only way you're going to get out of these sewers alive, so utilize them well.
Just keep up with me. I got a hideout over this way. The Reds ain't never gonna find us up here.
The Soviet armed forces have tonight declared a total victory over the underground rebellion. We continue to receive reports of minor incidents around the city, but it is clear that the rebels have been defeated. Tragically, our beloved Commander-in-Chief, General Tatarin, has paid the ultimate price in his relentless fight against the Freedom Phantom and his henchmen.
With everything that's happened to the Freedom Fighters so far, Chris has still opened up a massive opportunity with the General's death. It is now time to get our message out there to as many people as we can and try and take over the news broadcast center. That's the next mission. Now that we've got enough charisma, Freedom Fighters is now becoming an arcade-style RTS, and our squad is incredibly powerful. Sometimes we don't even need to utilize cover, just bull rush them as hard as we possibly can. Like a massive wall of zombies in World War Z, except with guns. We are now capable of saving our powerful weapons for more problematic fights. I mean, look at our first encounter with a tank, and some of these heavily armored soldiers, we don't even have to worry about them now. Not like we did in the sewers. But this does make another resource we have more limited. Our medkits. The only way you can heal in Freedom Fighters is by using a medkit on yourself. But if you're not doing all the fighting anymore, then they have to be used somewhere else. On our boys. The good and bad news is my kits are used to revive them, not to heal them. Depending on how well the fight goes, you might not ever use a medkit. Or you're probably going to use all 8 up at once. You can replace injured Freedom Fighters, but sometimes that's not a possibility. All of this is why Freedom Fighters late game becomes an RTS, more than a third-person shooter, because every time you walk out of the streets, there's a chance you might get gunned down, and that takes you all the way back to the beginning of a map, or a manhole cover, losing massive amounts of progress. After finally conquering the New York media building, it's time for the Freedom Phantom himself to make a call to action to the American people, especially to the people in New York City.
I stand before you today a free man, and I vow to die a free man. Like you, my world was shattered 8 long months ago. I watched as my family and friends were tortured, captured, and killed. I have nothing left of my former life, except the hope for a better future. I, for one, still believe in that dream. We've read this in our school books as children. Now is the time for us to embrace those ideals and stand up against the weight of tyranny. We have a duty to ourselves to throw off our oppressors. When I look around this city, I do not see smoldering ruins. No, instead, I see a sleeping army, ready to awaken.
I stand before you and the world today to reaffirm the pledge our forefathers made to each other and for each of us, to protect our lives, our fortunes, and our self-worth. So I ask you now to take up arms against the evil invaders and yell in their faces that they will never take our freedom.
Welcome to Governor Island, the most dangerous mission in Freedom Fighters, with the most intricate level design and savage enemy encounters in the game. You have 5 districts to conquer, each with a pivotal problem to overcome, all needing C4 to fix, having to raid the Soviets' own weapon depot to utilize it because Phil lost all the C4 during the epic invasion over a frozen ocean. The initial invasion is crossing this frozen wasteland of ice while dodging gunfire. You need heavy plastic explosives to get your men onto the Governor Island. That means raiding their ammo depot, returning to the pier, and taking it over, unless you think you can do this mission solo. Capturing the next few districts isn't that hard, unless you're stupid like me and don't read. How was I supposed to know there was a difference between these 2 helipads? You do need to repeatedly go back to the ammo depot to get more plastic explosives, or you won't be able to progress to Fort J. If you don't do all the side objectives, Fort J is rough. This is the last fortification in America that the Soviets have, with Isabella as their captive. But since we've conquered everything in Freedom Fighters, we are now given the full squad. The level design of Freedom Fighters is so perfect that the entire game is designed around you unlocking max squad capacity right before this mission right now. So you feel like you're at your most powerful right before the final push. Honestly, the hardest part of this map is actually getting through the front door with 2 machine gun nests peppering you the whole time. It can be a problem. Find a sniper rifle or get up close with Molotov cocktails. After that, it's just fighting our way through to Isabella and putting up the American flag on every single corner of the base. Right now, if you've completed this game on one of the hardest difficulties, you get to experience a reference to the original name of the game, the Battle for Liberty Island. I love and admire this game, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can be a bit bland playing nowadays. Other than the scope, size, and almost perfect pacing, distributing power-ups in a perfect way that most games now even mess up, it is fairly primitive, but that's not why it's fun. Or not used to train army officers. And the story is very predictable. So even though I spoiled everything, you haven't missed much. If you like this video, subscribe and like the video, because I'm doing another game from this era, but it may have damaged an incredibly well-loved franchise. Hopefully, I'll see you there.